This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
If your friends are nerdy and you are nerdy too, I want to talk to you. Friends talking nerdy.
This is the podcast making, public transit taking, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, son of a gun, Tim the Nerd, welcoming you to another episode of Friends Talking Nerdy, part of the Deluxe Edition Network. Head to deluxeeditionnetwork.com to find out about all of the lovely shows on the Den. And seated next to me, looking business professional and radiant as always, we have the most electrifying professor in all of podcasting, Professor Aubrey.
Hello.
This week, as we mentioned at the end of our last episode, we are going to be continuing on with discussing 1974 in music. And why don't you let the listeners at home who may, for whatever reason, be tuning into this episode first of Friends Talking Nerdy, why is 1974 so important?
Well, because it is the year that I was born.
There you go. Monumental event in human history.
Yeah, right. I brought with me the fall of capitalism. We just got to live through the next 20 years.
Yeah, you're one of the seven seals from Revelations.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's why 1974 is important, and that's why we're doing this. But tell me this, Tim.
Yes.
Why are we doing a two-part episode?
There are a number of great musical albums that came out in that particular year, and I love the opportunity to talk about music, especially older music that, you know, if by word of mouth and the show being a, audio podcast, word of mouth, I think we qualify. If we can raise some awareness about some bands that people may not be aware of, then we're doing the Lord's work, I guess they say.
I see. It harkens back to a time when the podcast was much longer.
But that's why we split it up. I mean, that, because, to what you're referring to back in the day, we would have, recorded for 3 hours and then released the entire 3 hours like we were Dan Carlin. But we're not Dan Carlin. We're more mindful of the fact that we have you, our wonderful friends at home, for only a certain amount of time. And that's why, depending on the topic, we will split it up over weeks.
All right. Well, I guess that's okay if you think you've got a plan.
Damn right I do. Speaking of plans, how about we start our list?
Oh, okay.
All right. Picking up from where we left off last week, we have Mr. Barry White released the album Can't Get Enough with the signature hit, Can't Get Enough of Your Love, Babe.
That was a very good Barry White.
Well, thank you for the compliment. I could have gone much lower, baby, and like that, but even then I would not have been able to reach his timbre of voice. It's a great song, let's put it that way, and I think there are a lot of people that were in my camp when it comes to Barry White for the longest time in terms of only knowing him from maybe his, appearances on TV or popping up in commercials or something like that without necessarily listening to his music, and Can't Get Enough of Your Love. Damn good song.
Yeah, it's very catchy.
Yep. I do remember him on The Simpsons, though.
Yeah, and anybody you've seen on The Simpsons, you can never see them the same way again.
Why do you say that?
Because they demonstrate that they're willing to make fun of themselves.
Ah, okay. Okay, yeah. He was the Grand Marshal of Whacking Day. That was the day where this residents of Springfield would whack and kill snakes.
What?
And he ended up, with Lisa's help, showing the town that Whacking Day was based on a fraud. And everybody stopped killing snakes.
Nice.
Yeah, so good for Barry White.
Yeah.
All right, shall I go on?
Yeah, let's talk about Harry Chapin.
All right, Harry Chapin released the album Verities and Balderdash with Cats in the Cradle and a Silver Spoon as the key.
Verities and Balderdash is the name of that song.
And that's what I think of when I hear Cats in the Cradle. Like,
It's like Balderdash. That's a game.
I mean, like, yeah.
This predated Balderdash, the game, though.
Well, it's still pretentious, and the Cats in the Cradle. I'm sorry. I know there are people out there that like that song, and I don't know if you do or not, but it just so goddamn pretentious. I fucking hate that song.
I think it's really sappy in the way that John Denver is sappy.
But at least John Denver, at times, knew how to strike the right chords depending on the song, like Rocky Mountain High.
Pretty good.
I think it's pretty good, yeah. But yeah, overall, Harry Chapin, meh. I mean, I know in the 90s there was a group, I believe Ugly Kid Joe covered this song. And yeah.
Was it a rock cover?
Yeah, but it was done as a ballad. I mean, they were like a 90s band that were still having the formula of 80s hair metal bands because you have to have a ballad.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they wanted to be serious, but how can you be serious necessarily while doing a cover that you don't make any effort in terms of trying to make it your own?
Mm-hmm.
Which is hard to do. Fair point.
Makes me think of Whitney Houston and Dolly Parton because they're two very different songs.
Exactly.
Okay.
How about we go on to our next choice?
Okay, that's going to be the Bachman Turner Overdrive.
Yes, the album Not Fragile, and the big hit off of that is You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. And I saw enough. Let's put it that way. Like, there were a number of rock bands in the 70s period that fit this format, I guess. I guess they would have called this arena rock at the time or something. And it just, jingoism, cliches, it's just, I don't know, too 70s macho, and I don't care for that, if that makes sense.
I just find the song annoying. It's just not interesting to listen to, really.
Yeah, none of their stuff is interesting to listen to. It's just how did they earworms, everybody. It's just an earworm.
Yeah.
All right, how about we go on?
Yeah, let's go to one that we're gonna really like.
Yes, Tina Turner released her country album, Tina Turns the Country On. The big reason we're bringing this up is that because of her passing away, there was enough demand out there, and I think also the Beyonce album probably helped as well. Her album is now available on streaming.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so definitely give this one a listen. I have not given it a full listen through as of yet, but before we started recording, we heard her cover of Chris Christopherson song, Help Me Make It Through the Night.
Such a great song.
Great song, and I mean, it shows, one, how good of a songwriter Chris Christopherson is.
Mm-hmm.
I said it.
Mm-hmm.
But two, it shows how great of a singer she is because she makes it her own.
Mm-hmm.
And what do I mean by that? I guess when she's singing it, the emotions that you feel as the listener, you feel like it's something that she has lived. She's not doing like a Kathy Lee Gifford singing a Broadway song type of deal. Just the mechanic singing a song. Anybody can sing a song, but to live a song, completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts on Tina?
Well, I love Tina, and we did listen to a little bit of the album, and it was great. As soon as it started, you can attest, I was standing up and I started swaying because it was so melodic and wonderful. And then as soon as she started singing, I realized who it was. And I was like, oh my God.
And I put it on out of nowhere. You were not expecting that.
Right. Yeah. I didn't know what was going on except there was music playing.
Anyway, that's Tina Turns the Country On. The big reason, like I mentioned, I bring that up is, one, released in 74, but two, it's on streaming now. Give it a listen. The next one here is from the Jackson 5, an album called Dancing Machine, with the title track Dancing Machine being one of the big hits off of that album. And the Jackson 5 were pretty much broken up by the time I became aware of Michael Jackson as an entity. But they have, despite the flaws of that family as human beings overall, they do have quite the musical legacy.
Absolutely. They were very influential. They continue to be very influential in music.
They are. And I think the big lesson ultimately, sometimes you can get beauty from a very flawed human being. And if you can take that beauty and turn it into something else even better, everybody wins. I think of the writer H.P. Lovecraft, notorious racist, but a reader by the name of Stephen King, when he was a kid, came across his stories, and Stephen King is not a racist, but was inspired by H.P. Lovecraft's work to become the writer that he is today.
Was H.P. Lovecraft's work racist, or was he racist?
My understanding is that he was racist. The stories themselves, like H.P. Lovecraft is the guy who created Cthulhu. Those type of stories.
Gotcha.
The reason I say, as far as I know, I'm sure there's somebody that's much more of an H.P. Lovecraft scholar that could come back and say, well, in this story, he said this, but meant this, then, hey, I will be the first to bring that information up on the air. But, again, flawed people can make great stuff. I mean, that's just a reality.
Yeah, I mean, that's the ambiguity of life, really.
Yeah, it's ultimately, what do you want to represent you by what you support?
Right.
Yeah. All right. Shall I go on?
Yeah, let's go on.
Okay. Mr. Joe Cocker released an album in 1974 called I Can Stand a Little Rain, and the big hit off of that is You Are So Beautiful to Me, Can't You See?
And this, I think, is the worst song on the Joe Cocker Greatest Hits, if such a thing exists. Joe Cocker, to me, was a one-hit wonder for sure.
What was his one hit?
What would you do if I sang?
I mean, he's had other stuff. Feeling All Right, pretty. I mean, would I say he's one of the greatest musicians of the 1960s? By no means, but I think he has enough of a legacy that he should be recognized for it.
Okay, I did like what he did at Woodstock.
Oh yeah. And he was also very cool in understanding and understood what John Belushi was doing with Belushi's imitation of him. Because if anybody, I mean, you've seen Woodstock, of course, and Joe Cocker, when he sang on stage, was unique, in terms of his body movement. And John Belushi embellished that to make it a lot more physical and a lot more playing to the back of the audience, if that makes sense. Just a lot more expressive. And Joe Cocker, at one point, did a duet with Belushi playing Joe Cocker on an early season of Saturday Night Live.
Oh, that's so cool! I would love to see that.
Yep, we have the cock. We can bring it up. Shall I go on to the next one?
Yes.
All right. Speaking of flawed human beings, we have an album called Tooth, Fang, and Claw, released by Ted Nugent and the Amboy Dukes, with the big track off of that being The Great White Buffalo.
I know nothing about this.
I love this song. I've made no secret on past episodes of Friends Talking Nerdy where where I stand when it comes to Ted Nugent. I mean, he's free to do whatever the hell he wants. And, while I do like some of his music a lot, I'm also, thanks to streaming, I don't have to buy an entire Ted Nugent album to give him money. I'm not going to see Ted Nugent in concert. I'm not buying a VIP pass to see Ted Nugent. If a song plays of his on any of my playlists, he's getting a fraction of a cent anyway. So I don't mind listening to his music. And The Great White Buffalo just, to me, shows, kind of the tragedy of Ted Nugent being so irresponsible politically, because I think he goes down as one of the greatest guitarists that people don't talk about anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be something like lead guitar or, like later albums with, Cat Scratch Fever. I mean, that's one of the best damn riffs you could ever hear in a song.
Whoa.
But subject matter, on the other hand, yeah, but it's Ted Nugent. He's a jackass,
Yeah. I remember Cat Scratch Fever.
Yeah. Great White Buffalo, like I said, I mean, I appreciate that song more than anything for the guitar work. I mean, again, he's simply one of the greatest guitar players, in my opinion, that's ever put on a six string for the type of music I enjoy. With that caveat.
Right. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. Shall I go on to the next one?
Yeah.
All right. Miss Carole King released an album in 1974 called Wraparound Joy. And the big hit off of that was a song called Jazzman. And the only reason I'm aware of that song is because of the first Simpsons album, The Simpsons Sing the Blues. Lisa Simpson did a cover of Jazzman. She did do a cover of Jazzman, but now that I think of it, it may have been on an episode of the show and not the album. So I will have that caveat there. But, Lisa Simpson did a cover of this song.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not terribly familiar with this album, and I won't ramble too long about this, but Carole King has written some of the greatest songs ever written. She's one hell of a great singer, and yeah, even if it is a lesser-known album of hers, you're not going to go wrong by checking it out.
Right.
Yeah. Any thoughts on Carole King?
No. I'm still thinking about Ted Nugent.
Well, what about Ted?
Just, thinking about...
How could you listen to his music?
Yeah. Thinking about what I think about that.
I mean, it's just a few tracks, let's be honest. It's not like an entire album or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, you like what you like, I guess.
That's my Woody Allen movie, for people that like the more artsy stuff out there. This is the less artsy stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next up, we have Mr. Barry Manilow.
Whoa.
With Barry Manilow 2. And the big hit off of that is Mandy. Oh, Mandy, you came and you gave without taking.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah. Seth MacFarlane apparently is a big fan of Barry Manilow.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, had an episode of Family Guy to where the four guys, Peter, Quagmire, Cleveland, and Joe were at the bar, and they were like, "Oh, do you know Barry Manilow's coming to town? Yeah. How about we buy tickets and make fun of him? Yeah. But this song he did is okay. Yeah, he did. And this song is okay too." And then Joe's like, "I love Barry Manilow." And then they go to the concert, and Barry Manilow actually did a guest spot on the episode and invited Quagmire on stage, and then sang Quagmire to him because he asked for somebody with 2 syllables in their name to come on stage. It's like, "Oh, Quagmire, you came, man, you came." But do you know who discovered Barry Manilow?
No.
Bette Midler.
Really? Was he, doing summer stock or whatever?
Yeah, he was her piano player in the early 70s when Bette was more focused on music. And do you know who one of Bette Midler's backing vocalists were?
Who?
Katie Seagal. Peg Bundy.
Oh, whoa. I thought I knew who that was, and I'm very surprised to hear it.
Yeah. One hell of a talented actress. But anyway, that's enough about Barry Manilow. How about we go on?
Yeah, let's go on.
Yeah, please. All right, John Lennon released an album in 1974. Walls and Bridges was the name, and the big hit off of that was a duet he did with one Elton John in the song that ultimately, because of this song, reunited him with Yoko. Whatever gets you through the night.
Love John.
Yeah. His solo career was spotty, in my opinion. He had obviously some great moments like Imagine and all that stuff, but then he had some not so great stuff. The not so great stuff was kind of around this era during what he ultimately called his lost weekend, where he spent time in LA and was getting drunk with Harry Nilsson and Alice Cooper and a bunch of other people. So his work at that particular time, again, resulted in the quality not always being there. But whatever gets you through the night, it's a good 70s song. I don't think it's aged to the point where people are going to, necessarily be like, oh my God, that's one of Lennon's best. This is something Lennon did for a quick buck and a quick laugh. And a laugh in a very good sense in terms of working with an artist like Elton John that he had respect for and having a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any thoughts on John Lennon?
Well, I mean, John Lennon is another difficult character, right? Because he was likely physically abusive to his spouse.
He openly admitted that in his 40s, and he said through stuff like therapy, he was able to work through those issues, so he didn't do it again. But I can completely understand why people would be like, I don't care. He did something horrible.
Kind of what I think about the people who are dead is it's not going to them, it's going to their families. And their families didn't do anything to me.
Yoko needs your help.
No, you know what I'm saying? Like, he
I
had
did.
kids and they weren't involved
In the stuff that he did, yeah.
in the stuff that he did. So, anyway.
All right. Shall I go on?
Yeah.
All right. The Rolling Stones released one of their classic albums in the 70s. I mean, if you want to talk about rock bands in the 70s, there's no other band that had a string of classic album after classic album after classic album. They released It's Only Rock and Roll, and the title track is It's Only Rock and Roll, but I like it. I'm sure you've heard at least that song, but have you heard the album?
I haven't heard the album, no.
Pretty good album. Not their best in the 70s, but, the title track definitely makes it a lot more prestigious because of it, being on there. This was also Ron Wood's first album with the band.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't care who he is.
It's just very esoteric knowledge.
Yeah.
About this particular. Maybe we have listeners who are really interested in this.
Yeah, of our 20 people, But yeah, Ron Wood used to play with a band called The Faces, with lead singer Rod Stewart.
Oh.
Yeah, and was friends with Keith Richards, and once Mick Taylor left the Rolling Stones, spot opened up, Ron Wood joined the band.
Gotcha.
All right. Shall I go on? Or do you have anything to say about the Rolling Stones?
Well, I think they're also problematic.
Just a little bit. I mean, like, I think we've talked about Mackenzie Phillips' open experience with Mick Jagger.
Yeah.
And, like, ew,
Yeah, grody.
Yeah.
So, we're in this, like, so much bullshit was going on in the 70s. And I realized that it's still happening. That 1 in 4 people have been sexually abused at some point in their life. So that's a lot of bad stuff that's still happening. But something about every band in the 70s is that they are problematic.
Yeah, the number of legendary rock bands that have stories about 14-year-old girlfriends is alarming.
Yeah.
Steven Tyler recently had a court case from a 16-year-old girlfriend he had at the time, or should we say victim, at that particular time. And yeah, there are just way too many stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there were more in the 70s because there was much more misogyny and the patriarchy was like an unchallenged thing.
To your point, though, it's not that stuff goes away either. It's just that what people did in the 70s, people got tired of and stopped doing that. So those type of people that still wanted to do that did something else.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense. Like, bad people are still going to find out ways to be bad, but if they see a bunch of people getting in trouble for doing one thing, they're going to try a different thing to be bad.
Right.
All right, and this is a band I love, folks. But again, I mean, their music is just a different entity, I guess. I mean, you put something out there that you create, then because that's the tough thing with like J.K. Rowling too. It's like at what.
That's not tough for me
Mhm.
because that is happening right now. It's causing harm right now. It's causing children harm, and it's happening right now. It's not like it happened in the past and those people could have changed and evolved as society evolved, and didn't everyone? And to what extent can we judge people in the past as we would people today? But J.K. Rowling, like I'm saying,
I mean, yeah,
she
not the
is
best,
causing harm right now.
and it's not the best example either. Not the best comparison, I guess I should say. But they still made good music. Now, speaking of people who didn't make good music, Supertramp. The name of the
I've heard of Supertramp, but I don't know anything about them or any music that they created.
Supertramp is a garbage band. Like the name of the album that they released in the 70s, Crime of the Century, and it's a crime of the century that they had a career. The big hit off of this is Bloody Well Right. Bloody Well Right, a bloody well right to sing. Like, just the lamest vocals, the lamest music. It was always just awful.
Wow.
Oh, another one of their songs, Take the Long Way Home. We take the long way. Like,
Gotcha.
yeah, just progressive rock.
I like prog rock. I like it.
I, you know,
I also like techno.
to each their own. What I am expressing is just distaste from my own personal musical choices. And you're like, well, if you like Ted Nugent, sir, you have no reason to speak anymore. Yeah, not a fan of Supertramp, but how about we move on to our next album here? Our next album is from one Bob Marley and the Wailers. The album is Natty Dread. The big hit off of that album, No Woman, No Cry.
What a great song, what a great album, what a great band, what a great person.
Well, he too was problematic.
Yes.
Was not the nicest to women, my understanding. Again, someone on the flip side who, through his music, has brought a lot of positivity and brought a lot of happiness to people for over many, many, many years now.
Yeah, and it's still, politically relevant.
Probably something that will always be an issue no matter what. Just it'll take different forms as time goes on. Shall we go on to the next one?
Yeah, on that happy note.
All right, Mr. Al Green from Grand Rapids, Michigan, released the album Al Green Explores Your Mind.
I thought you were going to say Al Green explodes.
Clean up in aisle 6. Al Green exploded again. So no, Al Green did not explode, but he did explore your mind. And the big hit off of that is one that you were probably more familiar with the Talking Heads doing on their Stop Making Sense. On their Stop Making Sense movie and soundtrack, Take Me to the River.
Yeah, I love that song. And I've really only heard the Talking Heads version.
Same here. And again, I'm the first. Al Green's from Grand Rapids. Yay! I have a connection to him. And, I only know a couple of songs. So with a streaming service, I should change that.
Yeah.
Challenge myself to listen to some good music out there, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, any general thoughts on Al Green?
I think Al Green might be the first one we've talked about that isn't problematic in any way I know. But you might correct me now.
I saw his behind the music.
Oh.
Yeah. Follows a dead person, then him finding the Lord.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, he did a lot of drugs.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, what musician did not? Not the Rolling Stones or anything like that.
Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
Yeah, and
as Rick James would say.
But if you get to a point though to where like you're not the one necessarily in trouble and facing years of jail, but even like someone like Rick James, showed that with time you can show publicly that you make amends, that you change, and that you're not that type of person anymore. And people generally will respect that. I mean, Rick James did horrible damn things, but by the time he passed away, he was held in high regard.
Mm-hmm.
He changed.
Right.
So, all right. How about we go on?
Let's do it.
1974 saw the release of Sheer Heart Attack by Queen. Had the classics Now I'm Here, Stone Cold Crazy, which was covered by Metallica, and the song that helped us name a cat, Killer Queen.
Oh.
Yes. Annie got her name from that because I was thinking of a character and loved Killer Queen. Also, Looks That Kill from Motley Crue are the two songs that maybe like, this is Annie Walker, my character from the story I wrote. So, yeah. But Killer Queen, one hell of a song.
Nice.
Yeah. What do you think of Killer Queen, the song?
I don't know anything about it. I haven't listened to a lot of Queen.
Oh, wow. I okay.
I mean,
That's throw me for that's okay. I mean, if it's because like you didn't even give me that type of reaction when I was like I didn't the first time I listened to Bob Dylan was when Guns N' Roses covered them. So yeah, I'm just shocked. It's one of their big hits, and yeah, you'll have to
how
change
does it go?
She makes no. It's he says a French champagne at the start of it. In a pretty cabinet, president case, just like Marie Antoinette and killing and Rabidi, Khrushchev and Kennedy, and then you can't present. Caviar and cigarettes, well versed in etiquette, extraordinarily. She's a killer. Queen, gunpowder, gelatine.
Yeah.
Dynamite with a laser beam. Guaranteed to blow your mind, like Al Green.
Yeah. He's going to explore your mind or explode it.
Oh, yeah. Along with Barry White, baby.
So, of course, I know that song.
Yeah.
I just didn't know what it's called.
You're like, yeah, in reality, she's thinking, like, I just wanted him to shut off.
I thought it was endearing the way that you kept singing the lyrics, even though it was clear that you had lost the melody completely.
That's why you don't see me looking to become a professional musician. So there you go.
You do have a very good ear, though.
Yeah, at times. I can pick stuff up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shall we go on?
Yep.
All right. A band that most people are aware of their songs, but not necessarily the name of the band. The band is Sweet. They released an album initially in the UK in 74. It was released in America in 75 called Desolation Boulevard. Has a song called Fox on the Run, which James Gunn brought back into prominence in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. And then Ballroom Blitz, which, if you remember back to the original Wayne's World movie, the female lead, Tia Carrera, did a cover of that particular song on the soundtrack. But
you know how much I remember that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
that was my favorite movie. I watched that movie 1,000,000 times. Nope, I've never watched that movie.
In her bedroom, folks, she totally had a poster of Tia Carrera with a guitar. It was so okay. Anyway.
No way.
Yeah, like put it this way about Sweet. I'm sure you'd be like, "What's Sweet? I've never heard of them." I'm not going to proclaim to be their biggest fan either. They're basically one of those bands that shows the importance of not totally dismissing old music, because even though their initial career, they didn't blow up the world, and it's not like they're blowing up the world now with in terms of their popularity. It shows that sometimes bands that you don't pay attention to can release some great stuff.
Yeah.
And it shows the importance of just giving any music a chance. And it's okay if you listen to something and you don't like it, like the Beyonce album. We'll bring that up again. It's okay to listen to it and go, it's not my thing. I didn't care for it. But someone else may at some point, and you never know too.
Someone else may. I'm sure there's lots of people who do right now.
Yes, I know. Yeah, I undersold that just a bit.
Mhm.
But just imagine though, if there are plenty of people who have released albums, didn't hit a huge audience until like years later, until it blew up.
Yeah.
So that's
Sometimes
this
even
guy,
after they have died.
sadly enough. But that is also the beauty of art. Your memory still lives on in that piece.
Yeah, but I think it would be really beautiful, and I don't know if they were able to do this. I don't think they were. I think by the time they got popular, they had passed away and didn't experienced being successful as a musician, like put out albums, obviously had some kind of audience. So time goes by, and then they actually become more popular than they were initially. Like they maybe have a little bump, and then they're not popular again for 20, 30 years.
Well, there's an example that just popped into my head too, but it has to do with painting. Van Gogh.
Right, exactly. The same thing.
Yeah, when he was alive, like he was able to sell the occasional piece here or there, but he when people thought of Van Gogh when he was alive, they were like that guy, But now,
That is crazy.
yeah,
Is what they would say.
but now we see his work and see it for the beauty that it is.
Yeah.
Yep. Speaking of beauty, Linda Ronstadt,
Hey.
1974, released an album called Heart Like a Wheel. Big song off that. You're no good. You're no good. Baby, you're no good.
Yeah, it's a good song.
Great song.
Yeah. I probably have listened to that album at some point. I think the album I have is more of a greatest hits album, but I can't remember. But
I thought you had a Stone Ponies album. That was the band she
I
was
do
in.
have a Stone Ponies
Oh,
album.
but you also
I
have
also have a Linda Ronstadt. If I kept it, I had to jettison a lot of records.
You, as a music fan, understand and appreciate the fact that because you were in a spot to where some of the records that you did bring to a record shop were not going to be played regularly in your place. Why not let them go to homes where they would be?
Yeah.
Yeah. Think positive, man. But Linda Ronstadt, one hell of a great singer. And I love the fact that, finding out years after the fact that she ended up first coming to prominence thanks to a monkey. Different drum.
Oh,
You and I, different drum. Anyway, Mike Nesmith wrote that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A monkey. I thought you were talking about an actual in the jungle monkey.
Yes, it was one they did scientific experiments on, and he could speak English and everything. I have written you this song here. I would like you, Linda Ronstadt, to please play this song.
You meant that her meeting. This is what was going on in my head. Her meeting with a monkey from the jungle.
You're no good, monkey.
Somehow transformed her in such a way as she could be the performer that she was.
No.
That's not what you're talking about. You're talking about Mike Nesmith.
Yep.
One of the monkeys.
Yep.
The band from the 60s.
Yes.
Gotcha.
But Linda Ronstadt too, like when she first, and I'm sure you know this and love this fact, when Linda Ronstadt first went solo, her backing band ended up becoming the Eagles.
Whoa.
Yeah, you're like, I kind of hate her now. You're not an Eagles fan, are you?
No, not at all. No.
Talk about problematic people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, I didn't enjoy the music.
There you go. How about we wrap things up? I think we need to at this point.
Yeah. Okay.
Grand Funk Railroad. We're going to end 1974 in style here, folks, with a can of Pap, some Lucky Strikes, unfiltered, and some Grand Funk Railroad. They released their album, All the Girls in the World Beware.
Whoa.
Yeah, of herpes, scabies. I don't know. But the big hit is Some Kind of Wonderful.
Do.
Oh, it's it's like what I talked about when we talked about Nirvana becoming a big thing. When certain bands that have a certain sound hit it huge. And I think the Rolling Stones were probably the big Rolling Stones or Zeppelin were the big two bands of the 70s. Really, you could probably throw in the Who, but you have a lot of bands trying to copy that, and I think Grand Funk Railroad was trying to be like a Rolling Stones type of band, like the blues rock type of influence, but it's so less than. It's just so cliche. So if it fits well on a bumper sticker in terms of like a song title or whatever, then it's probably not going to be a good song. There are some exceptions. Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys for one, but anyway, Grand Funk Railroad, let me guess you're a big fan.
Not a big fan.
Okay.
As we've done this,
hmm
I have discovered I'm not a fan of music from the 70s.
At least the year you were born.
As a general matter. No, I remember hearing music from the 70s after the 70s, because in the 70s, I was a very small child. But in the 80s, they were still playing it, and then they all became oldies, which I listened to when I was a teenager. And I never liked any of it. Except I did like the Doobie Brothers.
Listen to the music. Type of deal. Time has a way of sifting through the crap. It really does.
Yeah.
I think, when push comes to shove, yeah, I'm sure there are bands that started in the 70s that you would say, oh, okay, I'm cool with them. But it's okay if that's few and far between compared to like the 80s, the 90s, or the 60s and the 50s and back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is the interesting thing about going through lists like this about entertainment released at particular times, because a lot of times you forget about stuff that's released that was huge. Like we talked in last episode about the Donny and Marie Osmond. They were huge in the 70s. And now today, if they walk past you on the street, you wouldn't know.
No.
I mean, unless you lived in Utah, I don't know. Maybe they're like national state heroes there. That's
I bet they are.
Yeah, that's the Grand Rapids public education system at work. Anyway, but 70s, there are some bands that I do dig that originated in the 70s. Not many. I would say the bands I do gravitate towards more myself are going to be like your 60s bands or the 80s and 90s, let's say, but without the set, like Motorhead started in the 70s, so there's a band from the 70s I like.
That's true. I mean, there are bands from the 70s that I like.
Yeah.
But they're just not very many.
Well, and to your point too, like you're a fan of Bob Dylan, of course, but I think
the 60s era.
Yeah, that's the thing. I've not heard you really sing the praises of like the 70s era, and that is, surprisingly is more along the lines of music that I enjoy. Like the Knocking on Heaven's Door type of stuff. Yeah. Anyway, so 50 years ago, that was music released. And
wow.
you're like, wow, what a waste.
No, I mean, it's interesting to think about living in any different era. And because you could never experience that. We only get one shot. And so we have to experience the world as it is.
No, I thought you were going to break out in an Eminem song right now. It's a song from 8 Mile. You're like, oh.
Lose yourself.
Yeah.
Are you looking for a place for all things horror and don't know where to go?
Well, you've came to the right place, my friend. We are the Graveyard Club podcast. For all your horror needs, visit us on YouTube and Spotify, and you can follow us over on Instagram at the Graveyard Club Pod. See you there.
Ciao.
Professor Aubrey has a package in her hands that we have to say is quite delicious.
It is, Tim. It's Brazil from Coffee Bros. An amazing coffee with notes of cocoa and cherry candy.
Nice.
Delicious.
Indeed it was. I mean, like you and I, we both drink coffee in very different ways. I need it, 9,000 degrees hot. And me, I make my coffee and then put in as many ice cubes as I can. I'm like the guy from Clerks, what am I supposed to drink this coffee hot? Type of guy. But you tried it your way, I tried it my way, and we both really enjoyed the flavor of this particular flavor of coffee.
Absolutely. It is a relatively new roastery in New York, New York. Those little town blues.
Yep.
Taking the coffee bros away.
Exactly.
Anyway, they're relatively new. They've been roasting since 2019.
Yes, but they do have great connections around the world in the coffee growing areas to be able to get the best beans, to be able to give their customers the best product. And you, our friends at home, if you go to coffeebros.com and you order your own batch of this coffee or any other of the delicious brands of coffee that they have on their website, in the promo code spot, you put FTN10, we're going to be able to save you 10%.
That's right. 10%. It's going to be like $1.50. It's going to be awesome.
But that's what friends are for.
That's what friends are for.
That's right.
$1.50 when you need it.
Exactly. I mean, you won't be able to get on the city bus, but you will be able to save some money to be able to get some wonderful coffee. Again, head to coffeebros.com and in the promo code box, put in FTN10 and you will be able to have some delicious coffee.
Yep.
Drink away, people. All right. Anyway, that will wrap us up. And next week, we will dive into a great article from Psychology Today.
Yes, we will.
And I think we'll have some good laughs with that one.
Stay tuned.
Yes, but before we wrap things up here, as we record this today, even though this episode is going to be released about roughly a month from now, Don Snorleone has been convicted of 34 counts. He is a convicted felon. The presumptive Republican nominee for president is a convicted felon on a state crime that cannot be pardoned by the president of the United States. The scary part would be if he gets elected, then I'm sure Republicans will do whatever they can to change that around too. But he got convicted. Ain't that great news?
It is great news. I mean, I'm sure that he will appeal. Hopefully, he will serve time in jail or in prison. It's a felony. He should go to prison.
Especially due to how he basically gave the finger to decorum in the court. When he was giving gag orders, he specifically went out and, whether it be talking to reporters or going onto his garbage social media site and, just ripped into the judge, ripped into the jurors. Now that the trial's over, my understanding is that any sort of gag orders the judge put on him are now gone. So what's going to stop him from bringing up personal information about the jurors now? And those people did a courageous thing, including, if my understanding is correct, one of the jurors said during, the jury selection part of the process that he gets his news from Truth Social. And guilty on all counts.
Yeah.
I got to respect that.
Yeah, if they would come out and say things like, I agree with the principle and not the person, and throw him to the side. That's what I think is so disturbing, is that they want for their spokesperson this terrible human.
It showed the sick underbelly of conservatism in this country that a lot of people already knew was there, but for the longest time, the conservatives were able to shine it up real nice and make it presentable to the general public.
Mm-hmm.
That is now gone. You do have your diehards, but you also do have your people that would still identify as conservative, but also kind of sick of things. I mean, you have that coward Nikki Haley, who was still polling in the 20-30% range during primaries after she already dropped out. And we're talking about she was facing off against someone that used to be the leader of the Republican Party in 2020. In theory, Trump should not have been losing by 20-30%.
Right.
There is It's not a big percentage, but there are people that do consider themselves conservatives that may have voted for him in 2016, that may have even voted for him in 2020, that seeing what he is doing now are like, no, I can't vote for him.
I just disagree. I just think they've passed the point. He has so captivated that audience that it's past the point of redeeming those people.
But we're talking polling numbers. There are polling numbers out there of, people that consider themselves conservatives that again voted for Trump at some point, but are saying now they would not. And there have also been polling that has come out and said that, people would really consider not voting for him if he were convicted. Now, having said that, I want to make it 100% clear that I also understand that polls are not science and that polls can easily be manipulated to get the answer that the pollster giving the question wants.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely keep that in mind as well. So I could be wrong. I just get the general sense, based on, stuff like, like I mentioned on the show before, make it a point to try and have conservative outlets that provide news that I still read that I think have integrity, the basic of integrity that a news source should have. And that is, telling the truth when the truth needs to be told. Because there are like economic issues, you can have a different take on that. I can disagree with your take, but you can have that take. But facts, a politician breaking the law, like you got to call it what it is. And if someone does, then I'm gonna, at least check them out just to make sure I don't get stuck in, tunnel vision as well. Like I've been in the past with my news. I want to be able to hear what the other side has to say, not the lying,
Yeah.
And yeah, there are very, very few options out there for conservative talk with integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Few and far between, but they're out there. But, so who knows what is going to happen here, folks. In my opinion, though, this is an important day in American history. We've always said that nobody is above the law. If this stands and we don't have the absolute worst case scenario of Mango Mussolini getting voted into office and completely flushing the Constitution down the toilet in order to not have to deal with the consequences, or if you have some future president that's a coward and pardons him, we need...
Or governor of that state.
Or a governor of that state, too. I mean, we need people to have integrity here, and the only way we can do that is by holding them accountable when they do something bad.
Which has to be through voting.
For this particular issue, we don't want to, as people that want this guy to be erased into the dustbin of history through voting means, we don't want to sit here today as we record this or a month from now and pat ourselves on the back too much about this and do we defeat Truman type of deal.
Mm-hmm.
This could easily change to where inconceivably there would be enough people to think, let's give this guy a try again.
Right.
So anyway, how about we talk about one more thing so we can end on a happy note?
What's that?
We watched the remastered Let It Be on Disney Plus.
Yeah, we did.
We did. Peter Jackson ended up using the same restoration process for the original Let It Be film, which was directed by Michael Lindsay Hogg, who, interestingly enough, I found out via a Mary Tyler Moore documentary on Max, they were actually married once. Michael Lindsay Hogg and Mary Tyler Moore were a wedded couple.
Wow.
Yeah. But it was interesting watching this after watching the Get Back documentary first, because, as we talked about in our archives, Peter Jackson was given essentially every bit of film that was filmed for that particular movie, as well as other, audio clips and stuff to be able to make the 8-hour documentary that he was able to do. Let It Be was the original was the original part of that. The Let It Be was what first came out in the 70s. It came out after the Beatles were already broken up, so people at the time when the movie came out thought it was a movie about the band destroying itself, when in reality it really wasn't. Abbey Road, that is a different story altogether, but it wasn't even for musical differences really. But I think more than anything with Let It Be, I think it felt truncated. It felt like
It was so surface, it felt like. Like, these are just pretty pictures of people that you find attractive world.
yeah,
And, like, here's the music. But it wasn't getting in, like, you didn't get to see them in their off times. It was, a lot of footage of them
just singing.
singing and playing guitar, not sitting around with each other and joking or getting annoyed you could really see in Peter Jackson's the dynamics between the four of them and the people that surrounded them. Watching Let It Be after that felt kind of hollow.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't even get, and I can understand why it wasn't in the Let It Be film, but think about the fact that it took over 40 plus years for people to finally see that little 5 minutes of film to where Paul McCartney's fumbling around on his bass, and then by the end of 5 minutes, he has Get Back done.
Right.
I mean, a documentary as a TV series, the way Peter Jackson was able to utilize this footage and Get Back was the proper way for this footage, because the songs were great, but there was a bigger story going on.
Yeah.
And the Get Back documentary was able to dive into that, whereas the movie was just essentially a concert film. And what I respected too about all of this, I know when the Get Back documentary was first in talks, Michael Lindsay Hogg was interviewed and said, I don't know what they're going to do with it, so I don't know. I'll reserve my judgment. But at the start of the Let It Be film, there's a little interview between Peter Jackson and Michael Lindsay Hogg, and Michael said, Let It Be is the parent of Get Back. He understands, what Peter Jackson was able to accomplish and accepts that this is the better thing. Without this, there is no this, and I'm thankful for that. So I had a lot of respect for the guy for being able to be that open, and that humble too. I mean, that is a humble thing to say.
That without my song, there would not be this new song.
Essentially, that without the Let It Be film, there would be no Get Back documentary.
Is that true, though? Well, the footage wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's what he meant. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Anyway, I would still recommend checking it out, but check it out after you watch the Get Back documentary first, because again, I think it does make a little more sense having watched Get Back first,
Well, and it's just fun to think about, like, what was going through their heads at the time when you see them performing.
Exactly. So, how about we wrap things up?
Let's wrap them up.
All right. 4, the most electrifying professor in podcasting today. Each Monday, we'll have something in this podcast space to entertain your ear holes. Until we meet again, we bid you adieu.
Farewell.
Let's put on some Grand Funk. Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy
On YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify,
or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Goodbye, darling.